As is your favorite Dinobot here, and today we're going to be discussing what if Deathwing, right? The fire, the true fire and death, the Lord of all dragons, the aspect of death, the Lord of Oblivion, was in How to Train Your Dragon. Now, this isn't going to really be talking about what if he was in this movie, that movie, or in this series. This is kind of going to portray him on where he was here and how he pretty much changes the verse as a whole. So, yeah, let's begin here. And we're going to really talk about Deathwing in general. Deathwing is one of the strongest, if not the physically strongest character in the World of Warcraft universe. I mean, he's a little dragon. Like he's a human that turns into a dragon, so he should be stronger than some of the premier characters like Illidan and the Lich King. He's even durable enough to basically like withstand blows from like these hero raids pretty easily. So again, like I said in my Lich King video, it's very possible that Deathwing could get to that universal standard, as he could literally scale above void gods. So yeah, that's Deathwing. There's also the fact that he can open pools of lava. He can, well, breathe fire. He can actually just simply put fire on people. And when he flies, he burns everything behind him. So how would he fit in the How to Train Your Dragon universe as a villain? Narratively speaking, he'd be the scariest villain there. He'd be something Hiccup can't deal with as a whole. Now, you thought Grimmel was someone who gave Hiccup a hard time because not only did this man literally reflect what Hiccup could have became if he was to kill Toothless, right? You have Deathwing, who not only can operate as a regular human being, he operates as a dragon. So not only does this dude have the power to bust planets casually and cause continental, multi-continental mayhem simply by waking up, this dude has basically an entire army in his body. That's basically what he is. He's a walking army. Now, easily the best way I could give him an origin: a dragon goddess and a human, because there is a bit of lore around like gods and dragons within the How to Train Your Dragon universe. So I don't think it's very impossible to say that, a dragon and a human fell in love and they had a kid. This kid they got banished from their village, and eventually they were killed off by the people that banished them in the first place because they saw him as an unholy abomination. But during his teenage years, while he was being hunted by them, he snapped and transformed to his dragon form. And from then on, he conquered his kingdom, we'll call it Azeroth, and he pretty much just made a name for himself in the verse. So yeah, that basically would sum up how I would pretty much put Deathwing in the How to Train Your Dragon universe. I don't really have any ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, he fits in it very casually, very easily, and very simply as well, I might add. Now, in terms of like where he could appear, I definitely see him appearing at least in, I think he would appear in Defenders of Berg. Pretty much appearing in his dragon form. Then before he even lands, he goes into his human form. And you see like this kind of fire and ash kind of just spread around the village. You have Hiccup, Astrid, and the rest of the dragon riders arriving. And, Hiccup asks his dad, like, hey, Dad, who's that? And he, you have Hiccup's dad kind of like scared, because this could be a life or death situation for the whole village. Hiccup introduces himself to Deathwing, and Deathwing kind of just rolls with it. The kid doesn't know him. The kid is obviously new. He hasn't seen him before. And Deathwing only returns to this village yearly simply to be indulged, right? Every village has a role to play with him. They're a part of, the way he sees it, they're a part of his kingdom. And Hiccup's father would explain that to him. He would explain to them that they're mainly a part of his kingdom. This isn't theirs. It's actually his. And I think we would see a moment where, Hiccup kind of does defend Astrid a little bit. I think because Deathwing would kind of see her as maybe like a potential bride or potential mate, because you have to remember that this dude still operates like a dragon. So, I think some time would go by and Deathwing would indulge himself in whatever he wants to eat here. So this would, I think that would actually be what happens. Deathwing kind of indulges himself while eating, and he does take a stroll around the town. I think this will be where we have characters kind of keeping a back foot here. We see how the villagers are afraid of him. We see how some of the kids, they kind of are intimidated by his presence, and even the dragons, they bow in his presence. Even Toothless himself keeps his head low. The dragons don't even dare to raise their heads. They keep their eyes low in much more of a kind of a submissive air, And I think we would actually get Snotlout getting something he rightfully deserves. And that's kind of subpar mutilation. What I mean is Snotlout's going to open his mouth and Deathwing's going to hear it. He's going to say something insulting, maybe something on the lines of, I could take him, or this guy is nothing, he's not no king of mine. And this would wind up getting him grabbed by the face and having, I think it would be very gruesome, but I think he would get his body or face pretty much burnt. Yeah, that would be a very good way to show that Deathwing isn't someone who is to play with. Someone who's ruthless, someone who's monstrous. Now, the next time we see him, we would have him destroy Outcast Island, simply because they didn't provide an entertainment, and his signature would actually be a hole burnt, a hand-shaped hole burn, right? Through someone's chest. And obviously that someone would be Alvin the Great. So he would actually kill Alvin and eradicate the outcasts on this island. So in all honesty, it's not out of character. This is someone we're portraying as more of a neutral standpoint. He kills humans and he'll kill dragons if they don't do as he says. We're talking about a character that's a ruler. All right, much more of a ruling type of character. Now, in terms of How to Train Your Dragon 2, when that happens, and Hiccup and Stoic realize how dangerous he is, I think this would change Draco Bloodfist's motivation a bit more to actually try and gather a dragon army to usurp Deathwing's throne on Azeroth. Him using his own Bewilder Beast to basically, build an army. I mean, an army of dragons against the greatest dragon of all time. That's certainly a smart move. Seeing this and now hearing the motivation behind it, Stoic then plays his hand, and this is when he basically summons Deathwing. He basically blows a signature horn that only the most loyal or only the most trusted of Deathwing's generals or people would only have. And this is when Deathwing would come crashing down, and you would see pretty much this like fiery meteor or this fiery comet get burnt right through the Bewilder Beast, killing it instantly. And then you would have him grab Draco Bloodfist by the throat, burning right through it. You see the flesh melting around it, and then you see pretty much his whole body just get melted to a skeleton. He gets melted into nothing. Like, brutal. Am I right? Now, How to Train Dragon 3, I don't think Grimo would exist. And if he did, he'd probably be killed. Because, someone would eventually have called him, called out, and Deathwing would have pretty much solved it here. But I think I would have How to Train Dragon 3 pretty much revolve around Astrid and the Lich King. The Astrid would be the perfect bride because of something. Some kind of prophecy, or she's just the most beautiful person that exists at the moment. and nobody wants her more than the Lich King. So I think it would go the same, whereas the Lich King slaughters Burke, pretty much annihilating it worse than Grimmel. And then you have Hiccup having no other choice. Let's say someone gets killed. Let's say Fishlegs gets killed by the Lich King personally. And then you have him going to Azeroth to beseech Deathwing for help. And this is when Deathwing hears about the prophecy, and he goes with Hiccup to confront the Lich King, as he needs a challenge. Basically kind of like a Vegeta kind of way. So a good fight happens, and Deathwing winds up beating the Lich King in a good and close fought battle. But then we get into, what do they do with Astrid? Now, it's very possible Deathwing could take her, or pretty much just give her back. Now, me personally, it could go either way, because Deathwing could just very as well be ruthless as he is kind-hearted. But let's just say he lets him go and lets them live their lives. So in all honesty, yeah, that's how I think Deathwing would be in How to Train Your Dragon. Peace.